Welcome to Waking Up Wealthy, the podcast for visionaries and rebels who are ready to revolutionize their relationship with money and create powerful collective ripples with the money they make. I'm your host, Isha Vela, trauma psychologist, somatic practitioner, financial professional, and minimalist, bringing you practical money tools, unconventional wealth perspectives, and Aquarian era business strategies to guide you in building wealth that's aligned, ethical, and empowering. Let's wake up to the true meaning of wealth together. Because I've been thinking about matriarchal money systems for a while, and especially now within this very interesting timeline we're in, I wanted to talk about alternative economies, specifically community funding structures. This practice is formally known as a rotating savings and credit association, or a ROSCA for short, and it has over 200 different names that vary from country to country. In Nigeria, it's called a susu. In Mexico, it's called a tanda. And in the Chinese community, it's called a hui. I first heard of the susu about 8 years ago from an acquaintance in the social justice community. And I found them and I invited them to share their specific version of it on the podcast. Farron Harvey is a facilitator of wealth redistribution systems and a social justice movement builder for organizations and individuals looking to grow in integrity with their mission and values. And I admire Farron so much because they've been in the work and doing this work for 18 years, starting from when they were a teenager. And their journey in facilitation and movement has been shaped by having to compartmentalize their identities in certain spaces, which is why they now support people in creating, visioning, collaborating, and executing from their wholeness. And what I thought was going to be a straightforward episode on how to run and facilitate a susu ended up being a whole different conversation that I think will surprise and delight you. And it's about wealth distribution and equity. So you won't be the same again after hearing this. I hope you're ready. Farron, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. And when I thought about doing having this conversation about, alternative economies and all the different ways that we could, share money within community, you're always the first person that came to mind. And when you came up on my Instagram feed and saw that you were teaching on this now, I was like, okay, this needs to happen right now. So thank you. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm excited. Yeah, I'm just excited to see that there's such an interest in this work around redistribution of wealth and
Yes.
specifically equitable susus.
Mm-hmm. And I would love for you to share first, before we get into that, like what has been your journey with money? Because I've known you for like what, 7 or 8 years,
Mm,
and you were already talking about capitalism and about you were already doing this stuff many, many years ago. What's been your journey?
Yeah, so a bit about me. I grew up in Hartford, Connecticut, and I grew up working class poor. So my family always worked, but was still poor. And so, my relationship to understanding money, I think, really is influenced and shaped by my identities and where I come from, and seeing how there was just never enough money, and wanting something to be different for me, for my family, for the people who looked like me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And what does that mean for you, people who look like you? Like I want be specific about that because I feel like that's important.
Yeah, I am Black, trans non-binary, queer, and I was raised by like Black women, my grandmother, my mom, my aunts. And so when I say Black people or like people who look like me, those are the people that I'm often thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Black women, queer Black folks, gender variant Black folks. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And when you talk about like what what spurred you to look into susus, because there
Um,
was a
Hmm.
Yeah, like what was your personal journey with it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So my personal journey with Susu's, I was working at a job that paid decent at the time, but wasn't values aligned. And so, excuse me. And so, I decided I needed to leave and I wanted to commit to this calling that I had at the time around food justice, and really feeling like focusing on food justice was where I needed to be, with my
Hmm.
own personal relationship with like coming back to the land and understanding food and like talking about nourishing yourself. It just felt like that was the right move, but that move came with a huge price cut, um,
Mm.
in terms of what I was making. And I mean, honestly, in hindsight, I was exploited. I feel like the nonprofit community often exploits people's passion.
Yeah.
And when you don't know better, you just don't know. And oh my goodness. I promise I'm having such a good time and I love talking about this. Um, but the yawns are coming in. I don't know if it's just because the sun is beating down on my face and I'm like turning into a cat or what. But
Probably.
yeah, I'm just like, in the sun and my body's like, yes. Um, yeah, but I was at this nonprofit that focused on food justice um in Bridgeport, Connecticut at the time, and I just was not making enough. My starting salary was like 27,000 for full time.
Oh my gosh.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's not enough. That's not gonna, yeah.
But I was like, no, this is what I need to do in order to get into the farming world. I'll stay here for a year, then I'll like go somewhere else. And I had a little bit of savings from the last job, like 2 to 5,000 at the time. And baby, the way I went through that money so fast because I just wasn't making enough. And so
Yeah.
my friend was like, "Oh, how about you start a susu?" And I was like, "What's a susu?" And she's like, "You never did a susu?" And so I looked into it, and then I was talking to some other friends, and people about it. Like, would y'all be interested in doing this thing? And for people who don't know, a susu is usually when a group of people, historically, it's typically women, come together and they agree on an amount of money that they're going to put in for their duration of the time, and everyone
Hmm.
has to put that money in for the duration of the time. So, say for example, there's 10 people, 10 women, um, who are doing a susu, and agree they're going to put $20 in each week for 6 months. Then that's the commitment.
Hmm.
Then at the end, there's a person who's like holding that, right, and
Yeah.
making sure nothing happens to that. It's kept safe. Um, And so someone is responsible for that. So everyone will pay that person or give that money give that person the money. And then at the end of that 6 months, the person will divide it out amongst everyone evenly. And that's kind of like how traditional susus work. I think what's a really important context is what that allows for is a form of savings. And that's really important. It was really important and it still is important because oftentimes women, Black and brown folks, were denied loans or couldn't access loans because they weren't
Right.
allowed. And so this was a way for folks to circumvent some of that, which was like pooling their money, saving, and then being able to walk away with a larger amount of money because you could do more with $2, $3,000 than what you can with $100 each month, right? You're able to
Of
uh,
course.
differently, and so that was the idea. And oftentimes people who are doing it, are paying for kids' educations or starting their small business or getting supplies and materials to build them an actual home. And so that's kind of just like the history of susus. And
Hmm.
um mine's is slightly different, and I know we'll get there, but to answer your question about how did I even come into this work of creating
Yeah.
equitable susus. Simply put, I was working at a nonprofit that was exploitative, that wasn't paying me enough, and I needed to figure out how to bring in additional money to keep me afloat. And then
Mm-hmm.
that's when the like traditional medicine or the traditional and ancient wisdom of, our people came to me through the form of like friends reminding me and like them
Yeah.
taking up the mantle like to look into it and really figure out how can I do a susu with a modern twist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So thank you for that. And so everybody pays into it for a specific period of time, and then people take turns being the recipient. Is that right? Or you did it a little bit differently where people paid into it and then it got distributed evenly?
Yeah, so historically, a historic susu or a traditional susu, as I like to call
Yeah.
it, is that everyone pays in and then everyone gets paid out at the same time.
Oh, okay. So everybody receives at the same time.
Yeah, that's a historic susu. That is not my motto though.
Okay,
Um,
because what I was reading was that people take turns being the recipient. So
yeah,
everybody pays into it and then one person gets the whole pot, let's say.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
people take turns.
yeah. So the susu that I run is called an equitable susu.
Okay.
And how I structured it is that one, it's a susu where black and white folks are participating in,
Mm-hmm.
and the white folks are giving more than the black folks in that
Yes.
susu. So that
Yeah.
money gets redistribute to the black folks in that susu.
Ah, oh my gosh, that's really, really cool. Okay. So it's kind of, yes, equitable. So you're equalizing a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah.
So, for
Okay.
example, black folks have to put in anywhere from $20 to $100.
Okay.
For white folks to participate, they have to put in 200 or more.
Okay.
Right. And so the money that white folks are putting in then goes just to the black folks when they collect. And so to
Mm-hmm.
answer your question around how does the payout work, the way that I designed my susu was instead of me having to be the holder of the money and then paying everyone else at the end, once after the duration of time we commit to, that just felt I didn't have the capacity for that. I didn't want to be responsible mixing up, you know, I was worried about mixing up my money with the Susu money, and I didn't want to have to like figure out how to keep folks accountable, like show my accountability process. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
it to be hands off as possible.
Okay.
Still something that was handled with care, that was intentional, but didn't require a lot of me necessarily holding the money. Um, because rightfully so, people have questions all around how can we see the money? How can
Mm-hmm.
we make sure it's not there? And because at the time I was working with limited resources and capacity, what I decided would have been best is I pick a day of the month, so it's a standing time. So when I run my susus, it's like every 15th of the month is when someone is due to collect. So what I
Okay.
do is each person, say there's like 10 people in my equitable susu, each person is assigned a month. So if the susu runs from January to October, you will be assigned January, Angie will be signed, February, uh, Amelia will be signed March, I will be signed April, and so on and so forth. And so with
Okay.
your month, everyone in that group is sending you the money, and you don't have to
Ah,
put the money. You don't
okay.
have to put in, right? So everyone is like, I like to think of it as, the day we're making it rain on you with money. So you're just getting showered with money that day. So say your month was April, you're starting us off. That means you're not even sending anything. Automatically, everyone is sending things to you. And then,
Okay.
yeah, yep, yep.
Wow, that's brilliant. And did you specifically design it that way because you didn't want to hold the money or didn't want to be responsible for that?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
amazing. That's amazing because everywhere that I was reading, it was like one person has to be assigned, like you said, and they have to set it aside. Okay. And then you obviously if you're holding the money, you have to be transparent about where it is and what you're doing with it. And wow. Okay. That is really cool. That is very ingenious of you to create sort of like a to circumvent that whole transparency holding piece.
Thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
that was, and that's also with, the susu is still a lot of work, even with that piece of me not having to hold the money financially. And I've been through so many reiterations of the susu. Like when I
Yeah.
first started, um, I started off really small. I can't emphasize that enough.
Okay. Say more
Um,
about that.
I think people see like the post and they see the numbers and they're like, oh my God, yes, yes, yes. And they really want to create their own. And I love that. And I'm excited for this to like take off because at the end of the day, it's community and our like interpersonal relationships that will save us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's laborious and people have stuff with money. I have
Yeah.
stuff with money. You have stuff with money. Your loved one have stuff with money. How we interact with money, right? It can bring up
Hmm.
a lot of stuff. And also, trust is really important. How can I make sure that I'm running this thing and people are not gonna, sign up and then collect and then take off and I never hear from them and then it messes up
Right.
the group.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So I
So,
so in
go
order
ahead.
to handle all of that and really get a grasp of what I'm building, I really started off slow. The first susu that I did had 4 people in it. It was me and 3 other people,
Okay.
right? So it was me and 2 other friends and one white woman
Mm-hmm.
who was also a really good friend of mine. But it was just us four, and at the time it was like black folks put in 50, white folks put in 100.
Okay.
Right? That was the
Okay.
first reiteration of the susu. Um,
Okay. So it's
and
very manageable.
very manageable, very small. And, I think that is what I just would recommend anyone's listening who is really interested is start off small. It's a running joke. Like my friends like, we know you love a little pilot, a little test run. And I'm like, amen. And it's to work out those kinks because the thing that's happening is these are, at least for me, in the beginning phases, these are relationships that I care about deeply,
Mm-hmm.
one on one. Like these are my personal relationships. These are not like acquaintance or like people in the community or out distance. No, these are the people who I'm writing for, who write for me. And now we're bringing money into the dynamics of our relationship, and that can
Right.
and so, baby, let's go slow. Let's go real slow. Let's cruise on down the road, okay?
Seriously, yeah. And I mean, people always talk about like friendship and money and things like that. What kind of things did you notice that came up around money? Like what kind of money stuff comes up, right? In those first, let's say, the first 3 rounds of your equitable susu, what kind of stuff came up?
Stuff that came up was like, how am I choosing the order of people who get to go first?
Mm-hmm.
Who was a single mom of 3, and she was the
Yeah.
last Black woman to collect in a susu. Um,
Okay.
Before her was single folks. Who didn't have kids, and she was like, yeah, I think that's just weird, like I as a mom, right, I have more, I have more stuff to do, da, da, da. I have more needs. I'm taking care of kids, and yet I was the last one to collect.
Mm.
And so, the intentionality around, well, why am I being the last one to collect, or why did I put this person as the last one to collect? um
Okay. And
mhm.
how do you work something like that out? Like, okay, she's right. Where do you go from there? Do you just change the order or is it a
I mean,
longer conversation?
I think it's a and like she's right, and also at the time, right, I had reasons, right?
Okay.
So I think it's being transparent, and that's again why relationship building is so hard. Yeah,
Mm.
she is right. She was, she is a single mom. She had three, and I was worried that she was maybe going to be the flightiest. And so for 60, I'm
Oh,
putting you at the bottom. And flightiest might not be actually flighty is not the right word. I was worried that she wouldn't have the means to meet the amount that she agreed on, the $50.
got it.
So I
Okay.
put her at the end to make so because when you put someone at the end, that means they can't collect and leave. And so because I was concerned about her ability to hold it, instead of just naming that, what I did as a form of protection for the Susu at large was just put her at the end to collect.
And you said that to her, like you named that transparently.
Yeah, I named that, and we talked about it, and she was like, "Why?" Like, I thought I expressed that I was interested, that I would commit, and I was like, "You said that, but I also was interpreting your body language saying something else, and I really wasn't sure." And also,
Mm.
right, we're newer in our relationship.
Okay, okay. Wow, I mean, Farron, it's so I'm just sitting here mind blown because there is a lot of emotional energy that is invested in something like this. Like it's on the surface, it looks like it's very like functional. You put the money in, you take turns, or it is an equitable susu where there is our different tiers of giving, and then the distribution is equal or, done in a particular way. But then there's all of the processing that is part of it, right? All of the people's money stuff. What kinds of other stuff that came up?
Yeah, I mean, other stuff that comes up is, Black folks typically had stuff around money, like maybe shame or guilt,
Hmm.
to overgive,
Okay.
make sure that they weren't in a burden in our space or they were putting in the right amount. Um, and then white folks was walking around with so much damn guilt that they wanted to overgive and not be sustainable. And so
Mm.
I had to do was I had to acknowledge that that's what was happening in the space, um, and name it explicitly that like how I think about what the number is that you are putting in. For Black people, I was just like, that belief that we are taking advantage of, that we should, just be able to get it out on of the mud ourselves, or that reparations is something silly, you know,
Right.
that is just all rooted in white supremacy culture, and understanding that, you know, capitalism and racism are so deeply intertwined and you need one for the other. That's why we're where we're at. And
Okay.
so, part of it was actually like just naming like, white supremacy is operating in the space. It is telling us that we are unworthy. We have internalized those messages and internalized that there is something wrong with us, because we can't figure out maintaining or functioning in capitalism. And so to combat those narratives, Black folks are giving above their capacity. Uh,
Hmm.
right. And that also goes back to a bit to me around, I think about respectability politics. Well, if I just dress a certain way, if I show up, if I'm, if I look a certain way, then I'll be taken more seriously as a Black person.
Hmm.
And so if I
Yes.
give more, if I show I could give at a higher amount, I could prove that I'm not a burden in this space. I could be taken more seriously.
Wow, that's huge. It's so deeply rooted. And you were the one mostly facilitating these conversations because is that your special sauce too? Like
Yeah. Mhm.
working through all of this stuff?
Yes, yes. So I'm the one who's leading all of these conversations. And so I usually just stop it there. I'm like, I created this susu not for Black people, but because I needed it, which means Black people, right, also benefit from it, my
Yes.
friends. But so there is no separation from like me and the people participating in the susu, because I participate in each susu that I run.
Hmm.
Why? Because capitalism is whipping my ass and I need money.
Right, right. Oh
Um,
my
and so
gosh.
So one, I make it very clear I'm participating in it. I actually don't see anything wrong with it. I actually believe that Black folks in this country, in the United States, are owed reparations. Reparations is something that would have to come from the government. That is not happening. And so,
Right.
yeah, the government is like, sorry, we captured y'all, brought y'all over here, tortured y'all, made y'all believe y'all were less than, justify it through like Christianity, and then internalize it. And now y'all are air quote free, even though y'all were never free and y'all never got the reparations y'all needed. We can't just rely on the government, and we also just have to understand that um, while reparations is a thing that I believe in, it may not come from the government in my lifetime, but what can I do to make
Hmm.
sure Black folks has a little bit more ease and a little bit more breathing room?
Yeah.
Um, and that is I could support the redistribution of wealth from white folks to Black folks.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing. I'm just kind of sitting here thinking about it. Because it's so like you're creating it, right? You're not waiting for the government to do it. You're creating it, and then all of the all of the stuff that comes up for people and people feeling guilty for receiving, I'm hearing, and
Mhm,
then feeling guilty about having more or the
mhm.
privilege, right? White privilege, and then overgiving. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and you, from what I hear you saying, you kind of neutralized it in that, yep, I'm participating in this too. There's nothing wrong with receiving. There's nothing wrong with, you know, working through this process, da 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 da. It sounds like you kind of just neutralized all of the charge, like I like to call it, that comes up around money
Yeah.
and this practice.
And what I would say is I also made it clear that like this is a transactional thing because that's also I think important. People
Yeah.
think you got to build relationships with everything, and you don't necessarily have to do that. It's okay if you want to do that. But I also
Mm,
made it explicit like this is a transactional thing, and I also named that because one of the things that happens is when you know white folks redistribute money to Black folks, then it's this like expectation like, oh, well, we're friends now, or we're close, or we have a relationship. And it's like, that is not what we're doing here. This is explicitly a transactional relationship. And if people do desire to have a bit more of a personal relationship and get to know folks in the space, I used to the last few susus I haven't done this, but I used to run, and I would recommend it if the capacity is there. A one time like call with everyone on it, so everyone can get to know each other and see who's in the room, so they can see who they're being accountable to. And if people have
okay.
interest and they want to connect outside of the susu, then they get to do that, and it doesn't rely on me. It's self choosing, and also, I named that at the top that again, just because white folks are giving or redistributing money doesn't mean that they're owed a relationship.
Okay. Okay, that's very important to know. This is
Yeah.
all like I love that you're bringing so much, like we could just sit on this call and talk about sort of the how it works and all of the transactional pieces, but this is all of the human stuff that comes in, right? People's desires to connect. And then you're like, well, you're not owed a relationship just because you're in this group. You may do that, but that's not necessarily like what this is
Hmm.
about. So this is a really important nuance to iron out. And
Yeah.
this is yeah, and I want to ask you sort of a more challenging question, like have you lost friendships because of this practice, or like have people gotten really mad and walked away, for example?
And yeah, I haven't lost any friends during this practice, but people were disappointed or um, didn't realize that, like, I had. So, two things is happening for me. One, I also want to talk about um,
Mm-hmm.
how I handle like white folks and overgiving because that's a real thing. And if you want to,
Mm-hmm.
I think like for your susu, I think that's just something we should return to. So, just
Absolutely.
that train of thought before I lose it.
Yes.
Second, in regards to the question that you just asked around did I lose relationships? I didn't lose relationships, but um the susu had some growing pains. I talk to everyone who joins the susu, of course, because I run it, I'm the holder of it. And one of the things that I realize is people will say yes to you because they love you, they know you, but sometimes they're not listening to the thing that you're saying. Hey, I do this thing and I want you to be a part of it. And
Hmm.
one black person was like, I didn't realize there was going to be white people in it, and I am deeply offended that I participated in a susu that had white people because of the historic context of why susus happen and like it being predominantly a woman-led thing, um, and predominantly being black and brown. And I was like, yeah, but white people are redistributing. And at the time, though, this was again in the earlier phase when I was still piloting and shifting. Black people did have the option to redistribute at a higher amount, like white folks, and this person self-selected that. So, where other black folks was putting in $70, this black person was putting in 140. And when she
Hmm.
realized that she was putting in the same amount as white folks, she was pissed because she was like, my debt is higher. My
Mm.
like income, yeah, I have a high income, but because of my debt and because of the cultural expectation of sending money back home to my family, which I do, because my family absolutely needs it, I actually am not working with the same amount of money.
Right, right.
And right. And so I had to sit with that. I had to hear that. And so, one of the things that I embedded in my susu is for folks to give me feedback. Um, and for folks to hear like what's maybe not working for them so that I could again keep tinkering and improving. And so based off of that, right, something that I factored in when I'm having conversations with people, both black and white folks, is the amount you should put in is based off of those things. Like, will you have inherited wealth or a house or something in the near future? Do you have debt? Do you support your family? Right? Do you support your family outside of your immediate family, right? Maybe your mom or extended family, however you want to,
Hmm.
or do you need to send money back home? Like these are all things that you have to think about. Um,
Wow. And
and
do you put people through like an interview process where you ask all these questions prior to them coming in?
yes,
Okay.
the interview process is now I use a form like just an interest form, like,
Yeah.
hey, are you interested in being a part of the 2026 like Susu? Fill out this form. People will fill
Okay.
out the form and put the preliminary information, which is helpful. But then I have to get on the phone with everyone. For people who have participated in the Susu more than twice, I don't need to talk to people because they understand how it works. They saw it, they get it.
Hmm.
I don't need to talk to, but for new people, absolutely, I have to talk to them.
Okay. And what do you
Or if
say to
you
them on
haven't been
that?
a part of it in a while. So if you were a part of it in 2018 and now here it is 2025 and you're like, I want to sign up. Well, let's just because how I was running it then is different now.
Absolutely, it revolves, right? And for the new people, what do you say to them? What are the kinds of things that you talk to them about?
Well, it's really a vetting process because not I don't just accept anyone in the susu. You
Yeah.
have to be the only way you could be a part of the susu is if I know you directly or if you're one step removed.
Okay. Friend of a friend kind of thing.
Yeah. So you're getting in because Isha recommended you, and I personally have a relationship with Isha, and I trust Isha a bit more. And if this person fucks up, I'm gonna be like, Isha, you gotta get your friend. What time are they? Why would you recommend, right? Like, why would you recommend your friend? Just let
Yeah.
them know they were not good, or like, yes, your friend locked in and understood the assignment, and we're good.
Okay. Okay. And what are you looking for in a vetting process?
Specifically for white folks, I want to make sure that they understand it's not their money and they don't have ownership or they can't ask about how people are using their money, which is what I've had like before happen and had to turn specifically white women away because, you know, they heard about it through their friend and they're in the I just didn't realize that some of these people that was being referred to me was in the beginning of their undoing racism work. And so, this person
Okay.
was referred to me, and one of the things that she said was, she was like, "Well, can I ask what people are doing with my money?
Oh
Um,
my God.
do I get to see receipts about how people use the money?"
Oh hell no.
And I was like, "Oh, thank you so much for asking those questions. That's really good. But I actually don't think you are a fit for the susu because one, you don't understand the basic thing, which is it's not your money. Yes, you have access to the money and you inherited it or got it some way, but the money that you have, the ability, the privilege, right? It's from the historic disadvantage."
Yes. Yes. From the marginalization, like the intentional marginalization of Black and
Yeah.
brown folks participating in the economic system.
Yeah.
Okay. All
And
right.
so, right, I'm listening to how like white people specifically are talking about their money because the thing is, you don't want to just say yes to anyone or everyone who's like, yeah, I want to be a part of it, and I'll give you I'll redistribute $300 a month for the next 12 months. You don't want to do that, and every month she's like, well, let me see what you use the money for. Let me see the receipts because then that's creating a whole dynamic of this white woman policing black folks in this space and the idea that white or affluent people know how to use their money better smarter than how like working class poor folks
Right.
use their money. And the thing is, like, working class poor folks, they're not actually dumb. We got to understand that they just don't have enough of a resource, and so it's very expensive to be poor. And trust
Hmm.
that person knows how the money needs to be used in order for them to navigate the system.
Exactly. No, and it would be disastrous to have someone like that who is thinking about it being their money. It would be disastrous for someone like that to participate in the susu.
It, it would
It
erode
would,
it. Would-
yeah,
It would erode the trust. The black people would be getting pissed. They will be getting pissed at me. The white people who are air quote a part of this work and understand will be shocked, and they would need time to process, and maybe they would want support in calling out this other white woman. And now I'm in the whole process, right?
yeah. Oh my
And so,
gosh.
yeah, so we're not doing that. And so, the vetting process is for to make sure alignment is happening across all race lines, but specifically for folks who are redistributing money, that's particularly important because it lets you know where their thinking is at, and you want to mitigate harm as much as possible.
Okay. Okay.
And then for black folks, that call is important, especially if it's their first time, because again, you want them to pick a number that's sustainable. I mean, I also say this to white folks. I had a white woman be like, "Oh, I could give $500," and I was like, "Oh shit, okay, great." And I said, "Okay, I just want to check in. Can you give that for the next 9 to 12 months?" This was, "Oh no, 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 I couldn't give that amount." And I was like, "Okay."
Okay.
She's like, "No, I could give that amount for like 2 to 3 months." And I was like, "Oh, that's great." I said, "But I want you to come back and I want this to be sustainable. So I need you to come back with a number that is sustainable for 9 to 12 months." And
Okay.
that number went from 500 to 200,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense.
right?
Right. Just stretch it out over the 12 months.
And then
Yeah.
with black folks, I also want to make sure they're picking a number where yes, they're stretching themselves, but it's not causing them more stress. Like, have you thought about all of your bills? Have you thought about the fact that you have to like send money home? Have you thought about like your debt ratio? And like, is this the number you're saying because you want to prove something, or is this number actually like feasible? And so, right, like walking it back and supporting black folks and also making a number, deciding the number or making sure the number that they chose is sustainable is also important in that regard.
That's huge. Yeah. And then circling back to the conversation about the overgiving, guilt, overgiving from a place of guilt with white folks. We said put a pin in that, and I want to come back to that. This feels like a
Mhm.
good spot to bring it back.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a thing. I think, it's interesting with doing this work around like just money and interacting with folks who have money and don't have it, because what is interested is that there is shame and guilt on both sides.
Yeah.
And people who have money feel guilty and embarrassed and ashamed because, money is nasty. It's a horrible thing. It causes so much strife. They have so much of it, and the people around them don't. And so
Hmm.
it's like people get paralyzed by it. People want to get rid of it. They don't want to deal with it. They want to be in denial. Like, well, I'm not rich, or I don't have money, but my mom does. But I don't. But I work, or I don't. I'm not seeing any of that money, or I turned down my inheritance to prove. And it's like, baby, you didn't have to do that. There were so many other ways you could be in conversation with, shifting the narrative about money and all of the things. And so
Hmm.
it's really important when you're working with white folks that emphasize the that you want them to stretch and be a little uncomfortable, right? A little outside of
Yeah.
their comfort zone. But again, it's never about white people also suffering.
Hmm.
Like, I'm pretty clear about, um as there is no world for me in which I'm like, give me all of your resources, so then you are now suffering. That's not
Right.
what we're asking, or what I'm asking. I'm asking, hey, your cup is overflowing. You are actually full. Let me get that overflow, and actually let me just pour a little bit out of this cup, so when you're walking around with your cup, it's not filled to the brim and you're spilling it and it's being wasted. Right? That's
Right.
the
Right.
analogy. You still have your needs met. You are still able to take care of yourself, white person who's redistributing. But what's happening is this money that you would have used frivolously is being redirected in supporting a black person having a little bit more ease, or a little bit more capacity to know that 1 month they're able to make it and they don't have to worry about how.
Hmm. That's awesome. That's so good. So, what now that you've been running them for many, many years, what are the sizes that you run now? You said at the beginning it was like four people, your besties, right? Small amounts. What are the kinds of sizes you run now?
They're typically like 30 to 40.
Wow.
So that means I'm typically running multiple susus, like the susu that just finished, that started in 2025 but ended in 2026. There was four groups, and they had about 11, I think there was 10. I don't have the numbers quite in front of me, but there were like 10, 10, and 10 and 9 or something like that. So
The number
depend
of people in each one.
Yeah, like one group had
Okay.
10 people, another group had 10 people, and then another group had 10 people, and then one group had like 9 people.
Okay, got it.
And they're
Wow,
all happening
incredible.
simultaneously.
And you're doing all of the management of charge for all of those groups?
I am.
Wow. Oh my God. I hope you do you get paid on that labor? Because that's labor.
It is labor, and about 3 years ago, I just started like charging, and
Okay.
even then, it's not a lot because I never wanted to feel like, I mean, I also had to work through my stuff that was coming up, which is I didn't want to feel like I was doing this and taking advantage of Black folks. And what it was quickly was happening is I was like, well, I'm feeling some type of way because this is very laborsome. And
Hmm.
um, I also had to like reconcile that I needed to be paid for the labor. Like, it takes a lot to run these. And so the compromise for myself was having a tiered pay into the susu for my
Yes.
labor. So if this is your first time participating in a susu, you pay $30. If this is your second time, you pay $20. Your third or more time, you just pay me $10.
Ah, I see. Okay. Okay. Right, because assuming that the person will bring with them less labor because they've already been through the process several times and so they know. They know
They
how
know
it,
what to
you
expect.
won't have to spend as much time with them.
Yeah, they know what to expect. I trust that they won't collect during their turn and then just run off, right? Like there's the reason why that number is so low because there is actually amount of trust that is happening.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
yeah.
This is
I just want to
amazing.
pause 1 second.
Sure.
I just need to get water.
Okay. No worries.
My mouth is so dry, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm just turning to cotton mouth. I didn't want that to be captured in the background. So if we're running, sorry, person who has to edit this out.
Um, so just to close out the conversation, how have you seen this practice evolve, like digitally or otherwise? Like, um, that's one question that I want to ask, in terms of the money. I mean, you do it differently in that, you know, the money is coming from people's accounts and it goes directly into another person's accounts. I mean, back in the day, I'm sure it would be just like a little cash pot.
Mhm.
Um, but it doesn't so much apply to your model. But if there's, if somebody else is doing sort of the money handling piece, and they might open up a high yield savings account, for example, and
Mhm.
have the money like a separate that is just for the susu for this
Mhm.
particular group of people, and then distribute the money from there. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. And this is there have been scams that imitate susus, right? That are like essentially pyramid schemes. How do people recognize the real thing from a fake one?
Yeah. Yeah, that is a really good one because I also participated in a SUS. I mean, I intentionally chose to do it because me and my friends were all seeing it come up at a time. It was like a fire or a flower, something mess. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and the one that I was invited to was like you put in 500. Um, and then like more people put in, and then they give you the 500. Um, and I think what I would say in terms of how to spot them is asking people, okay, like you ran a susu, can I talk to some people that you might have ran a susu with or done a susu with? I think asking people about their experience, if that is possible, is helpful.
Yeah. Okay. So
Hmm.
for the people who are participating to also vet the facilitator.
Vet them. You got to vet them. You can't just take them off of word.
Okay. Okay.
Um, Also, I think if it feels like it's this idea of infinite, like you got to pull in this person and that person got to pull in five people, and then and then each of those five people have to fill in a 5%. You see how we just keep going down the tree, down the tree, down the tree. There's no
Right. So
does
that's more of like a network marketing model, right? Where it's network based, but that wouldn't work for a susu because it is built on trust. And those people are coming in, they haven't been vetted. There are friends of friends of friends, and yeah, that's not a sound model in terms of like just anybody coming in. It needs
yeah,
to be very intentional.
it needs to be very intentional, but there also needs to be a closeout. So
Aha.
with that, right? Okay, well, if I join that, then the people who I'm inviting, so I invite you and let's say Angie, then you and Angie got to find four people, then each of those four people got to find five people. Why are we branching off so much? Where does it loop back or close
Hmm.
out? How do we close it out? We're not closing it out. It just keeps going. It just keeps going. No, that's not how that works.
Okay. Right. It has to be a closed container.
It has
And
to be.
then people travel together, right? For the next, 12
Mhm,
months, they travel
mhm.
together. They do this journey together.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, because then the payouts wouldn't work if you
Correct.
have all of,
Correct.
okay, that makes sense.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh, this was amazing. Can you please let my listeners know where to find you, where to learn more about this? Do you have like a resource for them that you can guide them to?
Yes, yes. If folks are interested, they could find me over at farronsview.com. I will send you my website and my
Mhm.
um Yeah, I'll just send you my website and my IG, and people could find me there and they'll see
Okay.
all of the links. The website will bring them to the contact me if they wanted to maybe have a discovery call and figure out if they want to work together. Um, in terms of getting more information on the susu, I don't have my information up personally. There is some like protection that I wanted around it in terms of um, making sure, not that people can't replicate, but making sure that I'm not attracting too much attention in the sense of, the government or people who might want
Mm,
to use this for something that is antithetical to what I believe.
yes.
Um,
Yes.
so I don't share the information of the behind the scenes as much unless you're a part of the susu. But
Got it.
those
Got it.
who
Got
are
it.
interested, definitely willing to have like conversations, or being brought in to talk it through with them and their friends, or if they're interested in starting one with their organization, because also there's organizations who are doing susus.
Yes. So you offer those consultations.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Fantastic. That's brilliant. Yeah, because it's such an incredible resource, and as we shift more towards like community-based stuff, this will be a part of it. And like you said, and as we discovered over this conversation, it's so much more complex than you see on paper, right? You think going in is like, oh, this is transactional, and then you're like, no, this is actually much more involved.
Much more involved.
Yeah. Okay, amazing, Farron. Thank you so much for offering your wisdom and your knowledge and your time to this conversation. And everything's for the listeners, everything's going to be linked in the notes.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Remember to hit the subscribe button to get notified of new episodes dropping on the new and full moons of each month. And if you haven't already, leave us a 5-star review on iTunes to make sure that everyone who needs this transmission receives it. Until the next episode, I'm sending you fierce, fierce love.